Hi, morning, everybody. Happy race day, selection Sunday, St. Patrick's Day. We've got a lot going on, and obviously we got the Bristol race on the concrete in the spring. So looking forward to today. Enjoyed watching that truck race last night. Made out pretty well on DFS, so hopefully we can keep the momentum going. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in, liking, commenting, sharing, retweeting this content. If you're new here, subscribe. Slowly but surely, we're getting closer to 1,000. Get new followers on X all the time. And then, if you enjoy what we do, or if you're having a good weekend, throwing us a couple of dollars here and there just to say thanks is always appreciated as well. So let's get into the race preview and initial thoughts. So we got a 500 lap race. When you look at the NASCAR schedule, this race is up there. It's the highest, really, with the amount of points up for grabs today. There are so many points that you can earn. So if you're in like a season long, DFS league or something, you really want to make sure you come out on the right side this weekend, because if you don't, you're going to be missing out on a ton of points. Why is there so many points? Well, every time a lap is clocked off, you get points for whoever ran the fast lap and whoever is leading the race. And it only takes them, 20 seconds or so to get around this, less than that even to get around this track. So the laps click off very quickly. So you got 225 points up for fast laps, 125 points up for laps led. Now, because of that, you really want to emphasize and prioritize drivers in your line who have lap leading upside. It might look a little risky. You might be stacking more drivers towards the front of the field versus like place differential plays. It'll feel a little uneasy, but trust me, if it's a long race, we're going to see multiple lap leaders, different, cycles with cautions, different strategies, people on tires. The way the race plays out, most likely there's going to be a lot of different lap leaders. So those are the plays you're really going to want to try to get into your lines. One thing to keep in mind too, when you look at the practice data specifically for this weekend, it's pretty deceiving. There's a really big difference between Group A and Group B qualifying, or practice times, I should say, and qualifying for that matter too. Group A was significantly quicker than Group B. So take all the practice data with kind of a grain of salt. For me, I'm going to focus more on, how do these drivers do at the 2022 concrete race? How did they do at the 2023 concrete race? I'm not really going to take practice too much, into consideration. So when you get to the driver by driver breakdown here, I think the biggest dilemma that people are going to have is, do I play that lap leader or do I play that place differential play? Because there's some really, expensive place differential plays that are going to project really well, that even have, fast lap potential, even lap leading upside. So it's trying to find the right balance of, okay, how many lap leaders do I get? How many place differential plays do I get? How much am I paying up for place differential? And I think that's really going to be the biggest challenge that people have today when they're building lines. So you got Larson, Hamlin, Bell, Byron, Blaney, and Bush. For me, Bush is going to be the odd man out. If you're looking at historical Bristol data, everything's going to tell you, play Kyle Busch. And he's priced up that way too. However, when we look at the next gen eras and how this, how he's ran at RCR on the short tracks, there's just not a lot of data. There's not a lot of, confidence there. I mean, yes, he's a good driver, but, I'd rather play other plays up here. William Byron's kind of the other, odd man out for me. I prefer Byron over Bush, so I have him as medium interest there. But for me, I'm going to have significantly higher ownership to the other four drivers that we're going to talk about here in a second. So Kyle Larson, I probably have, of the four drivers I'm going to chat about right now, I probably have the least amount of ownership to Larson. I'm a little bit heavier on Hamlin, Bell, and Blaney. But I like Larson. The issue with Larson is he's expensive. This is one of Larson's best tracks. He comes into this weekend as the favorite, but he's really not my top priority, mainly because of where he starts. I do think he's going to score well. I do think he has lap leading, fast lap potential. But when I look at the other plays and, how they've ran on these tracks or where they start, their chances of being those lap leaders are just going to be a little bit higher. So I don't mind Larson, but you're really paying up for Larson. And I think there's, a couple other plays up here that give you a little bit more upside, in my opinion. I really like Denny Hamlin. I think Denny Hamlin has a great potential to be a lap leader. He's one of our most recent winners at Bristol in the next gen era. He has the track position to give you fast laps. He has the track position to get out front, lead you laps. He's been around this place a lot, and he's very good here. The other car that's really good here is Christopher Bell. Kind of like Larson, Bell gives you a little bit of place differential upside. So if you're playing Larson or Bell, I would most likely pair them with a driver that starts further towards the front of the field that you think could be that early lap leader. So maybe you play Larson and you pair him with Blaney because, hey, he starts up front. Or maybe you play Bell and you pair him with Hamlin because Hamlin's the guy that starts up front. So that's kind of the way that I'm going about it. I prefer Bell over Larson between the two of them. Bell's stats and data at this track are pretty strong, similar to Larson's, and he gives you a little bit of a price discount and a little bit more place differential upside. And then Ryan Blaney, obviously, is going to be one of the highest, if not the highest owned driver today. He's going to project the highest as well, just because he starts on the pole. He's going to be able to control the race. He was fast in practice. He starts on the pole, so it's pretty easy for him to get up front, lead laps, and kind of maintain the early portion of this race. I just know he's going to carry high ownership. So if you're playing cash games, Blaney's kind of probably going to be your main lap leader, but I like him a lot for tournaments too. Then you get to the 9K range, which you get kind of to your first dilemma with Christopher Buescher there. So he got loose in qualifying. He starts really deep in the field. He starts 34th, and like Hamlin, he's the other winner that we have at the next gen era on the concrete track. So yes, he gives you a ton of place differential upside. He's going to project really well. The issue is he starts so far back in the field that there is a slight concern, depending on how these cars do in traffic, that he could potentially get trapped a lap down, early in this race. That would be a concern that I have. And if you're playing Chris Buescher, you're most likely, sacrificing another type of lap leader in your line. I still think Chris Buescher could be a lap leader, so I still have a lot of them. Probably a little bit more of a cash games, play than a tournament option, but it's kind of the sacrifice you have to make. All right, maybe I feel really confident about these two lap leaders. I'm going to plug them in and I'll pair them with Chris Buescher. Or you sacrifice Buescher for another, more of a GPP, lap leading upside play. Logano is going to be more of a tournament play. I'm not really getting to Logano too much today. He does have the track position to get out front, earn you some dominator points, get some fast laps, but he's kind of struggled in the next gen era, specifically at Bristol, and that's a concern for me. I'd much rather, I think, pay down for Brad Keselowski. And I don't know how much I don't know how much ownership Keselowski's going to get. I think a lot of people are going to chase, Buescher and Chastain because they're going to see that place differential upside, which, I'm going to have a lot of Buescher and Chastain as well. But I think Keselowski makes for a nice tournament play. He's pretty fast on these short tracks. We saw RFK as a whole run well here last year. I like Keselowski as a nice, pivot option off of the chalky Buescher and Chastain chalk that you're going to see. I'm not really getting the Reddick or Truex. Reddick really isn't known, for these short tracks. His numbers don't really stick out. He starts in the mid pack. I think he finishes, maybe somewhere in the teens. I think he can score well. I just think he's going to get outscored. Truex is kind of in the same boat as Logano. Like, normally they're pretty good at the short, tracks, but just for whatever reason in this next gen era, especially at Bristol, I just haven't really seen it. And Truex is kind of priced that way as well. It's interesting to see him priced at $8,800. Chastain's could be another popular option. He's much cheaper than Buescher, so he's a little bit easier to get in the lines. Again, the concern is he starts so deep in the field, there's some risk he could potentially get trapped, a lap down early in this race, depending on how long, the first stage goes, and stays green. But ton of upside. I really like Chastain. I really like Buescher, and they're going to just be hard, to get in the lines because you're most likely, as you're paying up for that place differential, you're kind of taking away your lap leading plays or the amount of lap leading plays you can get in there. Elliott, I'm going to be overweight on. I love Elliott. I really like his price. He's really good at these concrete tracks. And starting fifth at this price, he allows you it allows you to build a line, with Elliott as kind of your third, lap leading play, or maybe it allows you to pay up and get one of those place differential plays because you still have Elliott there that could potentially get you fast laps and get out front and lead some laps. So I like Elliott a lot. More of a tournament play, but I'm going to be overweight on ownership there compared to the field. Gibbs is a little bit of a risky play just because he did hit the wall. They did have some steering issues. Now they're pretty confident that they fixed that car. He was pretty fast here last year and actually ended up leading a good chunk of laps. Really like his price there. So I don't mind him. He's in the player pool. I'm not getting to Bubba Wallace, kind of like Tyler Reddick, just not really known, at Bristol to be one of his better tracks. And starting ninth, I think he kind of just stalls out there. Bowman, I like too. I don't like him as much as Chastain and Busher, but the advantage that Bowman has is his price. He's a lot cheaper. It allows you to build, more of a balanced line. Bowman should easily, unless he has issues. I mean, he can easily finish inside the top 20. I think he's a nice, pivot play to kind of give you some price savings. Chase Briscoe's a little risky. He seems to always do this year. He qualifies up front. He actually runs decently well during the race, but I don't know if he can get out front lead laps, earn you fast laps starting sixth. I think he can give you some value if he can finish around, where he starts, finish inside the top 10, but there is a lot of risk with playing Briscoe. There's another, cheaper play that I have a little bit more confidence in that is similar to Briscoe that we'll chat about here in a second. So Eric Jones, I'm not really getting to. Again, kind of like Kyle Busch. He was really good at Bristol in the old car, but he was also on better teams. Now that we get to the new car and he's on this new team, it isn't the same. So historically, you're going to see some good stats for Jones, but with this next gen car, there's just isn't a lot pointing to him. Suarez is fine. I'd rather pay up for Bowman if you can. Suarez's numbers are okay, but Bowman's numbers are much better. And then once we get down to the 6K range, Michael McDowell. So McDowell's going to be kind of a riskier, tournament play per se. It's kind of similar to Briscoe, but I don't mind McDowell because his numbers are actually decently strong. I think his ownership's going to be low. Yes, he does carry a lot of risk, but if he can maintain his running position, which we've actually have seen on these concrete Bristol races, I mean, over those two races, he had an average running position of 10th, so pretty close to where he starts, and an average finishing, position of ninth, which is pretty impressive, given, this team. And he has the data, to support it. So, if you're looking for a value play, maybe a play that won't carry as much ownership that could, score well, I'll take a risk on McDowell. I'm going to be over the field on McDowell today. Noah Gregson, pretty strong run from him last week at Phoenix. He's in the player pool. I don't mind if you round out your lines with him, but he's not a priority for me. Stenhouse is kind of in that same boat. Bristol's an okay track for him. I most likely finishes around 20th or so. Josh Berry, maybe you sprinkle him into a couple of lineups. For whatever reason, if Ryan Blaney has an issue or Denny Hamlin can't get out front and lead you some laps, who's there? Josh Berry's there. He starts on the front row, so you never know. Maybe Blaney gets loose going into turn one. Barry's able to maintain that momentum and power through to the lead, and he's your stage one, priority lap leader. And it really allows you to build a crazy line if you're assuming Josh Berry's going to be a lap leader. The concern is even if he doesn't lead laps or if he doesn't, finish towards the top 10, he's not going to score well. He's giving you a lot of negative, place differential points there. LaJoy starts mid-pack, probably finishes mid-pack, so not really a lot of upside there. Austin Dillon, I like, again, just more of a cheaper place differential option. So no, he's not going to project as high as Chastain and Busher, but he's significantly priced, lower than those options. So if you're still looking for some place differential plays, look at Austin Dillon as a solid option. Austin Cindric just struggles. He starts 21st today. I'm just really not getting to him. AJ Allmendinger is in the Mountain Dew, Cheetos car, which is kind of a quite interesting paint scheme. Starts 30th. I don't mind him. I prefer some Austin Dillon, Ryan Preece, and Carson Hocevar over AJ Allmendinger, but AJ Allmendinger is a fine option as well. John Hunter Nemechek kind of in the same boat as Austin Cindric, just kind of, starts in the second half of the field, but most likely finishes in the second half of the field. Now, Priest has only won one race here. Has run one game and say it. He's only raced once at Bristol on this concrete track in the next gen era. But in that race, he ran around 12th for most of the day. He actually finished 12th as well. So, for $5,900 starting 25th, I don't think he's going to see as much ownership as Austin Dillon and Carson Hocevar. So he's another driver I'm going to be over the field on ownership wise. So I'm going to have a lot of Priest today. I like Kosovar as well. He got loose. He's starting on the last row. So again, there is some concern that yes, he's going to get trapped a lap down, but there's going to be a lot of drivers that go laps down in this race. So even if he does get trapped a lap down, him finishing 20th is certainly still doable. Todd Gilliland's medium there. If you start to pay down, maybe you're punting or need, some more value plays. I don't mind Todd just for the where he starts and like his finishing potential. Zane Smith starts a little bit too far forward. Daniel Hemrick, I don't think has a lot of upside. Harrison Burton, starts too far forward. Justin Haley would be the lowest I'd go on the slate. It's workwear equipment, yes. I'm not forcing him in by any means, but when you want to prioritize lap leaders, like if you can get two or three, or even four lap leaders in your line and those drivers hit, like they're going to carry you to the cash line. It's not going to matter, how many points Justin Haley scores. And starting 32nd, like he's not really going to hurt your line, and it allows you to get a lot of those top plays in your line. So I don't mind Haley. And then Casgrella, between the two, just pay the extra $200 and get Haley there. So that's going to do it for Bristol. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. This is always a fun, race for me to build lineups. So looking forward to watching the race today, and hopefully we can come out on the right side of it.